Okay, over to you, Asif.
Hello
Hello
everyone.
everyone.
Thanks
Thanks
for
for
joining
joining
today.
today.
It's
It's
great
great
that
that
everyone have
everyone have
joined.
joined.
Maybe a
Maybe
few
a few
people will
people will
join
join
along the
along the
way.
way.
So
So
before
before
start,
start,
we
we
are a
are a
Microsoft
Microsoft
Singapore
Singapore
community,
community,
technical
technical
community,
community,
and
and
Azure
Azure
Singapore
Singapore
is
is
part
part
of
of
Microsoft
Microsoft
technical
technical
community.
community.
There
There
are a
are a
couple of
couple of
others
others
community
community
as
as
well
well
for
for
like
there
there
are
are AI
AI
community
community
and
and
data
data
community
community
and
and
.NET
.NET
community.
community.
So
So
if
if
you
you
are
are
interested
interested
in
in
any
any
other
other
topics
topics
related to
related to
data
data
or
or
maybe
maybe
AI,
AI,
so you
so you
can
can
join
join
this
this
Facebook
Facebook
group,
group,
like
like
MS
MS
Technical
Technical
Community,
Community,
which
which
is
is
means
means
all the
all the
communities
communities
comes
comes
under
under
MS
MS
Technical
Technical
Community
Community
Singapore.
Singapore.
And
And
if
if
you
you
want
want
to
to
present
present
any
any
session
session
or
or
if you
if you
like to
like to
organize,
organize,
so you
so you
can
can
contact
contact
any
any
of the organizer.
the
And this is
organizer.
our meetup group.
And this is
So
our meetup group.
MSUG,
So
so all
MSUG,
our upcoming
all
events
our
and
upcoming
will
events
be
and
posted
will
here.
be
It's
all
like it will be
posted
announced
here.
there.
It's like it will be
And
announced
there is
there.
also our
And
YouTube
there is
channel that's
also
called
our
MEP
YouTube channel
user
that's
group
called
channel.
MEP
So
user
all our
group
session
channel.
recordings are
So all
available
our
on
session
our
recordings are
YouTube
available
channel.
on our YouTube channel.
And there are few sessions
And
we
there are
have done
few
in
sessions
past. In
we
December
have
we
done in
have done
past. In December we have
DevOps
done
series.
DevOps
So in
series.
that means there
So
are a
in
couple of
that
good sessions
means there are a couple of
DevOps
good
December
sessions
we have done.
DevOps
And
December
after
we have
that we
done.
have
And
done for the
after that we
API
have
series.
done for the API
So
series.
from past
So
January, February,
from
and
past
March in.
January,
So
February,
all
and
the session
March in.
recordings are
So all the
available on
session
our
recordings are
MEP
available on
YouTube channel.
our MEP
So you can
YouTube
just
channel.
type
So you can just
Bitly
type
and
Azure Singapore
Bitly,
sessions.
and
Azure
you can
Singapore
see all our
sessions.
previous
You
sessions are
can see
available
all our
there,
previous sessions are
and they're
available
quite
there,
good sessions.
and they're quite good sessions.
And today's we have
And today's we
two
have
very
two
good
very
topics. One is
good topics.
Microsoft Azure
One is
Advanced Threat
Microsoft
Protection,
Azure
and second
Advanced
is
Threat Protection, and
Azure
second is
Resource
Azure
Management
Resource
Template Development and Proven
Management Template
Practices.
Development and Proven
So
Practices.
Microsoft Azure
So
Advanced Threat
Microsoft
Protection
Azure
is
Advanced Threat Protection
Hasnain is
is
going to present.
Hasnain is
He
going
is
to
a
present.
lead engineer
He is
and
a
on
lead
cloud
engineer and
infrastructure
on cloud
in one of the
infrastructure
financial firms in
in one of
Singapore.
the
He is
financial firms in
having
Singapore.
more
He is
than 14
having
years
more
of
than
experience
14 years
in
of experience
various
in
fields like
various
cloud
fields like
infrastructure, data,
cloud
and
infrastructure, data,
consulting, and
and
PCS
consulting,
deployment.
and PCS deployment.
So he's
So
going to start at
he's
7 p.m.
going
And
to
if you
start at 7
like
p.m.
to
And if you
follow
like to
Hasnain, there is
follow
a blog
Hasnain, there is a blog
techtraintrim.com. So you can just follow
techtraintrim.com.
them.
So you can just
And
follow them.
our next session will be
And our
starting
next
from
session
8
will
p.m.
be
and
starting
is
from
presented
8
by
p.m.
Tim
and
Warner.
is presented
He
by
is
Tim
one
Warner.
of the
He is one of the
Microsoft MVP and
Microsoft
Pluralsight
MVP
author.
and
It's like a lot of
Pluralsight
things
author.
actually
Like
with
a lot
him.
of things
He
actually
is
with him. He
one of
is
the great guy who
one of the great guy
I follow
who
for Azure
I follow for
resource
Azure
templates, and for
resource
if you are
templates, and
interested in
for if you are
maybe to
interested
automate
in
your deployment
maybe to
process.
automate your
So I think
deployment
this session
process.
might be very
So I
helpful
think
for
this
you.
session might be very
And
helpful
he is
for you.
going to present
And
from
he is
8
going
p.m.,
to
which is
present
US
from
time
8 p.m., which is
mostly 7
US
a.m.
time, mostly
Okay.
7 a.m. Okay.
And in
And
upcoming days, we on
in
8th
upcoming
April, we
days,
are
we on 8th
going to
April, we
do
are
one session
going
on
to do
IoT. If
one
you are
session on
interested in
IoT. If
IoT,
you are interested in
so
IoT,
this session might be good
so
for
this
you.
session might
So
be
what you
good
can
for
do
you.
is you can
So
just
what you can
go
do
and
is you can just go
on our
and
meetup channel,
on our
meetup.com,
meetup channel,
MSUG,
meetup.com,
and you can
MSUG,
see we have already
and you
announced
can
this
see we
session.
have already announced this session.
And that's going to present by
And that's
Arun
going to present
Gri.
by
He is
Arun Gri. He is
PM for market apps and
PM for market apps
yeah, in
and
Credit Agricole Bank.
yeah, in Credit Agricole
And
Bank.
related to
And
today's sessions, we
related
have
to
done
today's
couple of
sessions,
sessions
we
in
have
past.
done couple of sessions in
There
past.
are we have done on
There are we have
Kubernetes
done on
authorization. There is a one
Kubernetes
session was done
authorization. There is
in
a one
past
session was
last
done
year.
in
So
past
that
last
is
year.
available on our
So that
YouTube
that is
channel.
available
If you
on our
want, you can
YouTube
take a
channel.
look.
If you want, you can
And
take
there
a look.
also we have done
And
two
there
sessions
also we
on
have done two
sessions
sessions
on
on
templates.
infrastructure and
So
ARM
if you are
templates.
interested,
So
those you
if you are
can just take a
interested,
look on our
you
YouTube
can
channel.
just take a look on our YouTube channel.
This is if
This is
you are interested
if
in
you
Power BI
are interested in
and
Power
if you are
BI
interested in
and
like how to
if you are
build the data
interested in like
pipelines,
how to build the
there's a
data
one event
pipelines.
happening
There's
on
a one event
March
happening
30th.
on March.
So
So
you
you
can
can
join
join
them.
them.
I
I
will
will
be
be
one
one
of
of
the
the
presenter
presenter
there.
there.
Okay.
Okay.
And
And
this is our
this is our
YouTube
YouTube
channel.
channel.
So
So
You can
you
go
can
and
go and
subscribe. You can
subscribe. You
see
can see
the
there are a
lot
lot
of
of
cool
cool
stuff
stuff
available
available
there.
there.
Good
A lot of good
sessions
sessions
on
Azure
Azure
and data
and
and
AI.
AI.
All
All
MVP
MVP
YouTube
YouTube
channel.
channel.
All
All
MVP
MVP
sessions
sessions
from
from
Singapore is
Singapore
available
is
there.
available there.
And we have
And
done
we have done
also
also
some
some
chartbuster
chart buster
sessions
sessions
in
in
past.
past. Those
Those
are
sessions are
sessions
also
are
available
also
on our
available on our
YouTube channel.
YouTube channel. And before hand over to
Hasnain, there is a few
Hasnain, there is a few reminders.
Please keep yourself
Please
on mute.
keep
If you have
yourself
any
on mute.
questions,
If you have any
either
questions,
put in the
you
chat
can
box,
either put in the
or you
chat
can
box,
raise.
or you can raise.
You can use the raise
You
hand
can
feature.
use the raise hand
And
feature. And
this session is being
this
recorded.
session is being
And if you
recorded.
like the session,
And if you
please
like
spread
the
your
session,
words on
please spread your
social
words
media,
on social media,
either on
either
Facebook,
on
Twitter, LinkedIn.
Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Yeah.
So over to you,
So
Hasnain.
over to you, Hasnain.
All right. Thank you so much.
Uh,
All right. I see.
Yeah.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah. Maybe you can share your screen.
Okay. Let me know once you guys are able to see my screen.
Yeah. We can.
All right. So thank you everyone for joining today's session. So as Asif mentioned about me, I'll just give a brief introduction about myself, and then we'll get into today's agenda. Okay. So my name is Hasnain Sheikh. I work as a lead engineer for cloud infrastructure. Roughly 14 years of industry experience, and I work with multiple global organizations. My expertise lies with Microsoft Azure, Office 365, messaging, and information security. I'm also a Microsoft certified trainer, and holds multiple Microsoft certifications, as well as other vendor certifications like VMware certified professional, Zscaler cloud security professionals. All right, so let's get into the agenda now. Okay, so what we are going to look at today. So we will go through the current cybersecurity realities to understand why the threat protection is important. Okay, and understand what is Microsoft Defender for Identity, also known as Microsoft Azure Advanced Threat Protection, and how it can help in threat protection. Later we'll look at the Microsoft Defender for Identity Architecture. What are different components it has, and we'll see how it works. In terms of detecting the alerts, detecting the signals, and then using the machine learning, and alerting based on the data it has. Okay. And then we'll see how what are the prerequisites to deploy the Defender for Identity. And we'll also go through the lab where we'll see that how to configure the Defender for Identity. Some of the workspace health, like what kind of events you will see there, how does it alert, it can be a false positive, true positive, or being positive, wherein if there's a penetration testing is happening in the environment. Okay, so those kind of events we'll see. We'll also see how we can generate the reports through Defender for Identity. And later we'll see the technical demo where I'll show you how we'll generate some thread and see how Microsoft Defender for Identity will show an alert about those signals. Q&A. Okay, so let's look at the current cybersecurity realities. Okay. So in modern attacks, it has evolved from the smash and grab. So now the attackers basically try to maintain the persistence in the environment. Okay. They try to get the user credential of unprivileged client user. Okay. And then start to hunt for the lateral movement. Okay. And try to get the privileged credentials. Okay. And with the current scenario and the industry experts believe that it can go undetected for almost more than 99 plus days. Okay. And most of these hackings, or the cyber breaches have either leveraged the password or the stolen passwords. Okay. The total cost for the cybersecurity crime to the global economy as of 2020 was 500 billion, and it is expected to be $10.5 trillion by 2025. Yeah. And the average cost of data breach to a company. That's very interesting, and it can never be accurately determined. The reason behind is on top of the business disruption. It is difficult to assess the value of the intangible assets like reputational damages, cost of the rebuilding of the systems and cost of investigating the breach itself, and also if there are some regulatory authority, they need to pay the penalty for that as well. So the average cost of cyber incident to a company could be around $3.86 million as per the industry experts. Okay. And now why identity theft is being the prime target now? Because in the paradigm shift in the information technology, now users are accessing the resources from anywhere in the world, right? It's no longer just the network based attacks, right? Means it's not just within a data center now. So will the resources are deployed either on-premise or cloud, and users are accessing all different sorts of devices. It could be a company should devise their own personal device, okay, or mobile devices. Okay. So that's why now the primary targets are identity. Okay, and as per the US Federal Trade Commission received 1.5 million reports of identity theft last year, which is double than the last year, which was 2019. Okay. And they have also seen huge increase in malware and ransomware as well. Okay. So now let's try to look at the anatomy of an attack, which can be also treated as like a cyber kill chain process. So what and how attackers plan to do an attack. Okay, for an organization. Okay, or against the organization. So what they do basically, like the sophisticated attackers, right? They spend a significant amount of time on researching their target. Okay. They try to gather more information about the organization and perform the external reckoning, which is basically to know what are different websites have, organizations have, what are their on-premise resources, what are their cloud resources. And just an example would be like whether the organization hosts an email at on-premise over cloud, or like using Office 65 or using Office 65 or Google Suite. So that can be easily done by just looking at the MX record of the target domain. Easily get to know. So that's how they will easily get to know the organization, where their email is hosted, where their email is hosted. Okay, and once they get a fair bit of understanding knowledge about the organization, they can also collect from LinkedIn portals to form the organization structure. Who are the important people? Financial. If they are targeted for those financial users, will look for those specific users. Okay. Once they have those details, what they try to do is basically deploy their tools for the exploit. Okay. So most famous is basically the phishing email, where they send a phishing email and then ask users to seems to be like it's a legitimate email, and they try to harvest the user credential. Okay. And then once they manage to get the organization account, they start performing the internal recon, looking at the address user, address book of the user, who are different users are, looking at the domain, group membership in the domain, who has what rights, like who are the domain admins, like who are the domain admins, or who are the who are the enterprise administrators, and then once they have that, right, once they have prime target is to get to the domain. Prime target is to get to the domain dominance, or take the complete domain dominance. So they'll start to perform the lateral movement. They will try to look for another system for which they can also compromise, from that single machine. Single machine. Compromise the credentials. Different. They use a different hacking tools. Different hacking tools. And once they have it. And once they have it, they try to perform remote code execution domain towards or against the domain controller. They can manage to get to the admin workstation and get the admin credentials. And once they have the domain credentials, they start to take the domain dominance. They can perform the remote code execution. They can have the access any of the resources in the organization. They can manipulate the data, or they can remove the data, or they can remove the data. They can steal the data. They can steal the data. So what we will see that this in cyber kill chain process, right? Microsoft Defender as Microsoft Defender as advanced threat protection helps. What are different tools Microsoft has protect you at different stages of cyber kill chain process. Okay. All right. So Microsoft has got multiple advanced threat protection solutions. So starting with the user mailbox, they have Defender for Office 65. Earlier this was also known as Office 65 ATP. It basically helps to protect the organization from malware, as well as using safe links, using safe attachments for malware detection, and safe links for malware detection, phishing URLs. So what happens is, if the email contains the URL, it will rewrite that URL. It will rewrite that URL. When the user clicks on it, it will try to see if the link is malicious by secure server in Microsoft 365 environment. So before user credential gets compromised, he would be blocked. He would be blocked, or at least he will get the warning. He will get the warning. This doesn't seem to be the appropriate site. Now, at the Windows device level, they have a different tool, which is they have Defender for endpoint, Defender for endpoint EDR solution, basically EDR solution detection and endpoint detection and response system. So if the attackers, let's say the credential, right? Now his target is that how do I install the tools for exploit, which he can use to move further in the organization, or perform the lateral movement. So for that part, Defender for endpoint will help to protect the device. If it finds that there is tools like Mimikatz, let's say, it will quarantine that. It will alert. And it will also alert in the Defender for endpoint solution. Once let's say user managed to get the credential, and he also managed to disable the antivirus, let's say, or disable the antivirus, let's say, or the Defender for endpoint on the device itself. Now his target is to move the lateral, make the lateral, and make the lateral, get the privilege account, get the privilege account. So for that advanced attack, that's where the Defender for identity comes into picture. So it can also protect help you to protect the Active Directory identity, as well as the on-premise identities. So it helps you to protect or detect the suspicious user activities during that cyber kill chain process. So the attacker is trying to perform the recurrence. perform the reconnaissance, just like who are a member of domain admin, who are a member of domain enterprise admin, who are a member of just enterprise admins, or just trying to take that look at the DNS, take that look at the DNS, right? Do the zone transfer for DNS, do the zone transfer file DNS in a local file. Those informations, alerted in Defender for identity, in Defender for identity. Or if he's trying to let's say do the pass the hash, taking the ticket from some other compromised machine, and then using it against the domain controller. So it will alert. So it will alert signals. Those signals. And before make a bigger, the attacker could make a bigger, take the domain dominance, or take the domain dominance. Will be generated. Alerts will be generated. Team can take cyber. Team can take take the action and take the action. On it, and then for data protection, Microsoft also has the cloud app security. Microsoft also has the cloud app security that can protect the data, not only within the data, not only within Microsoft scope, outside the Microsoft but also if some of the third-party solutions, so if some of the third-party or AWS, like a GCP or AWS, you can integrate it with you can integrate it with Microsoft Cloud App Security. It will help you to protect data. So if there is any sensitive data, so if there is any sensitive data that is being copied or downloaded, it will help you to alert that and help you to alert that and protect that. So in today's agenda, our focus will be Defender for identity. Our focus will be Defender for identity, protect the environment from the advanced attacks. All right. Okay. So let's try to understand. What is Microsoft Defender for identity? So it's basically Microsoft cloud-based security that leverages your on-premise Active Directory signals to investigate advanced like compromised identities, malicious insider action at your organization. That is directed at your organization. It leverages leveraging the machine learning-based analytics. It also helps you to protect your user identity and user identity stored in Active Directory. And then using the machine learning technique like user behavioral analytics. Behavioral analytics. It helps sort out the real incident from the false positive. Helps you to focus on abnormal activities only. And that also shows you in the alert. And that also shows you in the alert with timeline using the attack timeline. And since Microsoft Defender for identity runs on Azure infrastructure, it can scale any business requirements. It can take up to 30 days. To learn and understand the user device usual behavior. Since signals are going far faster than humans can possibly process through manually. We also leverage Microsoft Intelligence Security Graph, which around handles 6.5 trillion signals per day. So imagine the kind of data it has, and then gets all the signals, and then all the other cloud services that Microsoft leverage that helps you to leverage that for protecting your organization. Now let's take a look at why we should use Microsoft Defender for identity. Like I mentioned earlier, these are different cyber kill chain process. And Microsoft Defender for identity helps you to protect you from the known or unknown attacks. Before they could cause any damage. So starting with the moment they'll information, like gather the information like abnormal resource access, account enumeration, where they will try to see who is this user, who is this user is part of, where all this user is part of, is he part of some privilege, or if they try to find out the network station, where they know that the password could be potentially hashed there in the hash. So that's where it will help as part of the reconnaissance protection. And once the let's say the compromised credential, right? That's where it will see that the honey token account, right? The honey token account, right? If you have a honey token, are they so honey token account is basically so honey token account is basically like a user account, and you want that account, and somebody uses that account, that means if somebody uses that account, that means some bad actor is there in the environment, or if it finds that hey, there is some user there is some user who's working hours usual, okay, like 9 to 6, okay, like one day he finds that okay, but one day he finds that okay, there is a login request coming for that user from around like 12 midnight, right? 12 a.m. midnight. There's some VPN activity that is trying to happen. Those are abnormal activities. Those are abnormal activities as per the data it has, or the baseline data that it has. And then try to see if there is the compromised credential is trying to make the lateral movement, right? Basically during the lateral movement, okay, bad actor will try to move from one machine and try to from one machine and try to take the ticket or take the ticket or access the other machine, which he can compromise as well. Or if there is any abnormal authentication, or if there is any abnormal authentication movement in the lateral movement, then if he gets that right, and then he tries to that right, and then in the lateral movement it will be more of in the lateral movement it will be more of, but if he tries to get, but if he tries to the admin credential or let's say the admin credential and now making right privilege escalation, right, to get the higher user credentials or the privileges also detected by that will be also detected by identity, our Microsoft Defender for Identity. And then if at all, and then they manage to find a golden ticket or modifying any sensitive groups like enterprise admin or domain admins as well. It will alert those as well. So that's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons Defender for Identity to protect the organization. Really helps to protect the advanced threat. Okay, from the advanced threat or advanced threats. Okay, now let's take a look at what are different components it has in terms of the architecture and how it works. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. It has got three components. Microsoft Defender for Identity, the Microsoft Defender for Identity portal, where you create your Defender for Identity instance. You view your data that is received from your IDP sensors, on-premise IDP sensors. Monitor detected any suspicious activities. Then it has got a sensor which you need to install on all the domain controllers. If you have ADFS servers in the environment, you need to ADFS each ADFS farm members as well. If you don't want to deploy it on a domain controller, you can also deploy it on a standalone sensor. And then configure the mirroring, and then configure the event forwarding. That can be also done. So one is a portal, second one is a sensor which needs to be deployed on a sensor, which needs to be deployed on premise, and third one is the Microsoft Defender for Identity Cloud Service. Okay. And then this can be also integrated with your VPN, so that if there is a VPN traffic, if there is a VPN traffic, it will also learn based on usual connectivity or user connectivity. Okay, so currently this Microsoft Defender for Identity Cloud Service. Currently it is deployed in US, Europe, and Asia only. And it is connected to the Microsoft Intelligent Security Graph, so that it gets the updated signals and knows that could be the compromise or signals, true positive or the false positive. Okay. All right. Now let's take a look how it works. Okay. All right. So once you have deployed the sensor on your domain controller, it tries to gather the data, parse it, and then pass it to the Microsoft Defender for Identity. So basically, it's like gathering the baseline data through your network user and devices. Okay. For this, you need to also have the monitoring, logging and auditing, so that it can collect the good data and understand could be the usual usual looks like would be the unusual for your network. What would be the unusual for your network? So it can connect from it can connect from eventually deploy the domain controller, you can deploy the domain controller, or you can also deploy it and then configure the port mirroring and then configure the port mirroring so it will work. Okay, it can also collect the it can also events from SIM events from SIM solutions as well. Okay. So once what it does is basically collects data for using the machine learning and using the machine learning and analytics. It knows that okay, what could be your good signals, what could be the usual behavior of the user, what could be the usual behavior of the user, and what are different sources and what are the different sources or the system he access. Then it analyzes that user behavior and learn the user behavior. And every time and every changes happens in the user, behavior, it will learn those behavior. It will learn those gradually. Okay. So that's pretty much about it. That's pretty much about it in the analyze and learn. Okay. Let's look at the. All right. Yep. Slide. So once it has the baseline data, it knows that what could be the good signals. Good signals could be the unusual. What could be the unusual or unusual behavior of the user, or unusual behavior of the user. And that will flag. Okay. And that will flag suspicious activities. Suspicious activities. You can also configure the email based so that whenever the report comes, or it reports to the Azure Microsoft Defender for Identity, or send an email report or send an email to the respective team who needs to go ahead and investigate further. Okay. Right. Okay. So this is how basically it will alert all the activities. Basically the suspicious activities. And will show that who, what, and when, and will show that happened, what, and when, so and how it happened. Taken from one of my, this is like taken from one of my lab. In this case, the remote code execution by the user, against the domain controller, against which domain controller machine, and from which so it's like machine. Full detailed information. So it's like a full detailed information that can help to hunt it down quickly. All right. Okay. Right. Let's quickly look at the what are the different. Let's quickly look at the what are the different Defender for Identity. Defender for Identity. It would require your Microsoft EMS license, or you can also have license, or you can also have the standalone Defender for Identity. You need a service account to connect your on-premise Active Directory. If you have a multiple Active Directory forest, you need the multiple service accounts. And you also need the admin account. And you also need the admin account. Either the global admin or either the global admin or security administrator privilege in Microsoft. You need to make sure that it has the you need to make sure that it has the cloud, since you need to make sure that it has the connectivity to make sure that it has the Microsoft Azure over Microsoft ATP .com or port 443.com. Okay, you can use the proxy for it. You can use the proxy for it, or the FQDN-based filtering. You can use FQDN-based filtering. The server OS must be Windows 2008 R2 SPK. The recommended one is the latest OS. The latest OS. And when you plan to deploy it, and when you plan to the capacity that how many Defender would you require? How many different sensors would you require for your infrastructure? Service spec should be service spec should be around like 2 core processor and minimum 6 GB of hard drive space. And minimum 6 GB of hard drive space. The recommended is 10 GB at least. Okay. Now, how do we configure it? So it's pretty straightforward. Go to the Microsoft. Admin portal, Office admin portal, from there, and then from there create your workspace. You need to provide the username password. You need to provide the username for your Active Directory forest. You can create a generic service account, or you can also use the group manage, or you can also use the group manage, and then download the Defender for, and then download the Defender sensor package, sensor install package, and then install the sensor. Okay, these are different types of. These are different types of see like what are open, what are suspicious activities, suspicious activities that you have, closed ones that you have, and mitigated earlier. Suppress would be just ignore it for now. Okay, events that you want to reopen, you can delete those alerts. You can delete alerts, and you'll not be able to restore it. what are different types of report? What are different types of report we can generate from Microsoft? So you can have a summary report, which will basically have which will basically have all the open alerts, events, okay, or the alerts, modification of a sensitive groups, modification of sensitive groups like domain admin or enterprise admin, like domain admin or enterprise if there is any password exposed, if there is any password exposed, and if there have been text, and if there have been paths for the lateral movement paths for the sensitive accounts. All right. So, all right, take a look at the demo. Take a look at the demo. And
there is two questions on your chat. So maybe on your chat, answer first or before your demo. Answer first or before your demo.
1 second. Okay, sure. 1 second. Does end of does end of Microsoft look at the first one, that is Azure Microsoft SharePoint Online, Azure SharePoint Online Team, does it automatically include MS Defender? No, this Defender for Identity is primarily for the on-premise. Defender for Azure itself, for the Azure itself, you can have the Defender. You can have the Microsoft Azure Defender, which is like Azure Security Center. There you will get it. The Security Center. There you will get it. Okay. Does end of support for 2008 does not have any impact on Defender? Does not have any impact on Defender for Identity? Yes, it would have. Yes, it would have. I mean, it can still support. I mean, I would not say that support. I mean, I would not say that supports that. It will work on 2008 R2. But yeah, the recommendation is definitely to go with the higher version like Windows 2019 operating system, like Windows 2019 or 2016. Does it answer your question? Does it answer your question? Okay, all right, thanks. Okay, all right, so let me open up my lab. Let me open up my lab here. Before that, and before that, showcase the okay, all right. So this is the prerequisites in terms of the prerequisites in terms of the configuration, right? Because once you configure it takes at least 15 minutes to start at least 15 minutes to start. So that's why I just took the screenshots, which I can show you here, and then which I can show you here, and then we can generate some thread alerts. We can generate some thread alerts and how it will report. Okay. So basically, in the Office by Admin portal. Let me open my portal here as well. Let me open my portal here as well. Okay, so basically, once you click on this, Azure ATP, right, it will take you to that stage where it will ask you to create the instance first. Create the instance for Microsoft Defender. Okay, for Microsoft Defender. Okay, for Identity. Once you click on that, it will ask you for the username and password. It will ask you for the username and password. I use the managed service account. I use the managed service account and putting my on-premise domain name. Okay. Once you have configured that, it will ask you to download the sensor setup. It will give you that can be leveraged access key that can be leveraged later for the installation. And then this is the setup which I can domain control it directly. Okay. If you are configuring on a standalone server, then even port mirroring and log forwarding needs to be configured. Okay. This is where you provide your access key. Okay. That's pretty straightforward for the installation. Yep. And these are the two services. These are the two services you will see on the server. Thread protection sensor and one for the updater sensor, and here's the log location. And here's the log location. But yes, default log location. But chosen a different path for the installation. That will differ. Okay. And if you have a multiple sensor, here, you'll be able to see here on the Azure ATP portal here. ATP portal. And when you create that instance, it also create three different groups, which are pretty much like the Defender for the Defender for the naming that you see, right? But it's the naming that you see, right? As Microsoft has done in the naming, but many done in the naming, but many people still recognize that as the Microsoft itself also. And I see the Microsoft itself also does that. Okay. So in our demo, what we are going to see is the recurrent space where DNS query and see how it will showcase that and will perform the lateral movement and will perform the lateral movement and try to pass the hash. And please make sure that you never try this in your production environment because these are not considered. These are primarily used by the red team. So what I'm going to show you, right? What I'm going to show you in my lab is basically in my lab I have one domain. have a user who is Ron. He's a help desk user. Ron. He's a help desk user. And since he's a help desk user, he has got access to user. He has got access to one is for the admin PC and one is for the admin PC. And now Jeff is the user which has been compromised. Is the user which has been compromised. PC. So we'll and try to see that how try to see that how Jeff on the Jeff machine how on the Jeff machine how try to get the attacker will try to get the hash for Ron and then use it against the and then use it against how he can take the ticket and then how he can take the ticket domain admin which is logged in here domain admin which is logged in here it against the domain and then use it against the domain controller. Okay. All right. So let me just connect to my lab here. Let me just connect to my lab here. Okay. All right. So let me get my commands here. So first we will perform the and see how it will reflect in the Azure ATP Right. Let's just do the NS lookup and I'll just try to do the zone transfer. Do the zone transfer. On-prem domain name is okay. Definitely it's going to fail. The zone transfer is not allowed because the zone transfer is not allowed. The query is how it will reflect. Now we'll see how it will reflect in the Azure ATP portal. One thing to note that it's not very immediate. It's not very immediate, right? Depending upon the configuration, right? It may take up to like 5 minutes. So just in case if it doesn't show up, immediately, I'll show you the previous events that I had. Okay. So since I mentioned earlier that it takes around like 30 days to gather the baseline data, right? Will not show some of the alerts you need to go and find here. You need to go ahead and find the user. So based on the we'll try to see on the victim. We'll try to see on the whether it has generated that whether it has generated that alert or not. Okay. So it has not generated. So it has not yet generated those alerts yet. But I'll just show you. From the other PC where I had run that, show that, okay, and how it will show that. So yep. So you see this query resolving the MS Cloud Guru.com. So this is how it will reflect the the user tries to basically the attacker tried to gather all the DNS records to that particular system. Okay. Now this is where it's trying to gather performing the internal reconnaissance, right? Okay. While we wait for those let's try to perform the directory reconnaissance. Okay. So now I'm going to try to find out how many users are there right in my domain. So it will in my lab I have got very few users. Okay, as you can see. But yeah, in a production environment you will find there would be many. Okay. Now let's see. What are groups we have here? In the domain? Okay. So yep. Okay. These are few of the default groups we have. Now let's see who are member of the domain admins. These would not be a usual behavior for the end users, right? So these would be treated as the abnormal activity. Okay. So with this, the user or the attacker is aware that these are the two members who have domain admin privileges in the environment. Similarly, he can also perform or run it against the enterprise admin. Once they know it, look for those specific user credentials. Okay. So in the enterprise admins, I got only ATP admin. Okay. So let's see. So how does it reflect in our ATP? Okay, looks like this is not the current one. Okay, but usually it will reflect like this. In the ATP. Okay. in the ATP. Maybe it might be just taking some time. Maybe it might be just taking some time. So now what I'll do is I'll try to what are net sessions are available. Net sessions are available against our domain controller. Okay. Okay, so it found that the Jeff. So it found that the Jeff is a user. Okay, who was an active session here? Okay, who was an active session here? Okay. All right. Just keep it here. Okay. Okay. So now you can see right with this. So now you can see right that okay. Now on this particular PC, on this particular PC, which is an admin, domain admin. Here on this PC, he's got the Jeff. Here on this PC, he's got the Jeff. So now his target is going to be that. Now his target is going to be that. Okay, to the how do I get to the admin PC and gather the admin PC and gather the Samira, ticket for Samira, right? Okay. Okay. So this should also. This should also it takes a little while to showcase. It takes a little while to showcase the results. But yeah, okay, yeah, okay. Let me see if I can show the alerts. Let me see if I can show the alerts from my previous setup. From my previous. So this is how the alert will show. So this is how the if there is a recurrence performs. If there is a recurrence performs for SMB as using the net as command. Okay, if it goes in details. It will show that details. What will show that how what all different information managed to get the bad attacker has managed to get. Okay. 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 I'll do. I'll just try to. I'll just try to. Just try to restart. Just try to restart the service once. Let's see if that helps. Yeah. Let's see if that helps. Yeah. Okay. So So while it's doing it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the hash value, and find out like who all and find out like who all are here, and then available users are here, and then I'll try and then move to the admin PC, and then move to the admin PC. So all right, let me. Right. So as a bad attacker, right? I mean, there is also that there are also that can configure, and it can configure and passwords in a plain text. The passwords in a plain text actually, it doesn't restore, you see it right there. It doesn't store it in a hash format. Hash format does, but if there are a registry key configured for WDigest, it would show up just like a. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to take. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to take this hash value and then use to get more information in the environment. So now what we'll do is we'll try to see the RON is a member. So he has managed to get the RON credential. So he has managed to get the RON credential now. The bad will try to see that where all this user is a member, right? Okay. So with this, now he knows that. So with this, he's a member of a help desk. Now he's a member of a help desk. He would pretty much have access to. He would pretty much have access to the workstations in the environment. The workstations in the environment. Now he's going to basically. Load that. We're going to load that RON's hash. Hash. Okay. However, when we load it, it's not going to report it until we use it to access some other resources. Okay. Okay. So now what I have done is I have loaded the hash. What I have done is I have loaded the hash Ron and Ron. I'm going against the domain control. I mean the admin domain control. I mean the admin PC. Okay. Right. Right. Okay. Okay. Let's see if there are any alerts. If there are any alerts. Okay. So you see, this was the reconnaissance for the net session. Was showing that Jeff, performed on the victim PC against the victim PC against the which is my domain control. ATP DC, which is my domain control. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's try to perform some of the activities. Let's try to perform some of the activities and then see how it reports in the. Okay. Okay. So let's try to. This now what I did basically I tried to enumerate the local group member of the other computer. Okay. So it has found that on that machine there is a user my name and there is a help desk who is member at local administrators. That means there are local admin privilege which he can get in and then the admin already identified that domain admin credential is there. He'll try to go after that. Okay. And let's see what all different ticket we have here now. Okay, so you see here now. He has managed to get the bronze credentials. Okay. Now what we'll try to see how it can copy the hacking tools on that machine. Okay. Okay, hold on. Okay. Let me come out of the. Okay. No, it's not working here. Okay, so we copied that file there. Okay. Now it's running the commands to copy run that tool. Take the ticket for Samira Abbasi. Okay. So you see here. Now I used the overpass the hash attack, right? What I basically did on the victim PC. Okay, I copied the help desk hash value, and then I authenticated against domain control while accessing the admin PC. Okay, so that's how. Okay, and you see here, right? It's reflecting that before the 30 days period. Because it's just a lab, so yeah. Okay. Let me try to see if I have managed to get the ticket for. Looks like I haven't managed to get the ticket. Okay. Okay. Let me see if it has managed to export it here. Okay, it managed to export the ticket here. It managed to export the ticket here. Okay, looks like this command wasn't copied. Looks like this command wasn't copied completely. Okay. Okay. So I already got the ticket now. Okay, so you see, okay, so you see with this, so now with this, I have got now the ticket. I have got which is for the domain admin, admin, and okay. But this now, if I try to run it against domain controller, you can see I managed to get the access. I managed to get the access to domain controller. So you see, right? They just need one account. They just need one account to start. And once they manage to get one account, they manage to get one account, and they start to perform the lateral movement. They start to perform the lateral movement. Manage to get the privilege escalation. Manage to get the privilege escalation and they domain dominance. Domain dominance. Okay. Okay, and I hope this that reflect here soon. This reflect here soon. You see here, right? Okay. So you see here, right? Okay, this is the old one. Okay, this is the old one. Haven't managed to get the new one. Okay, the new one. So basically, this is how. Yeah, so basically, this is how it will help you to protect your organization from the bad attacker. From the bad attacker. I see we are short of time, so I see if you guys have any other questions, so I can take it. If you guys have any other questions, I can take it. Okay.
Hi everyone, if you have any questions, so you can either unmute yourself or can ask in chat box.
Hi Hasnain.
Hi.
I just wanted to know, like you just mimic this scenario.
Correct.
So is it this exploitation what you just try to mimic from your local PC? Is this from the hacker's perspective, or you just demonstrated how we can further harden the hardening of security in terms of Microsoft identity provider.
It's more of how Microsoft Defender for Identity will handle those threats. So I generate attackers will generate perform the activities in the environment, and how Microsoft Defender for Identity will help you detect those. Basically. No, so I'm nowhere.
Thank you.
Because like I said, in the beginning only, right? These tools not supposed to be run in production environment. This is purely for the lab. This is purely for the lab. Okay. This was just to generate those. Yep.
Yes, thank you. Makes sense.
So basically the red teams, right? Like a red team that cyber team does. Basically, the red team mostly uses these kind of tools. Yeah.
If you have anyone have any questions, so you can ask. Otherwise, we'll already on there. ATM, you're there.
I am here, Mohammed. Thanks.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm pretty happy today. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Okay, maybe let's give me a second. Hey everyone, Thanks, Hasnain. Thanks, Hasnain. Thanks for your demo. And thanks for your demo. We have our next speaker. He is a Microsoft MVP. He is a Microsoft MVP, and he is also one of the biggest Bureau site author. He have a lot of experience in PowerShell, ARM templates, and Azure and Office 365. So he have also a YouTube channel. Already following his ARM template series, which is quite good. If you are a beginner, so maybe you can take a look. And he have wonderful courses on Hero sites. So if you are interested to know more about ARM templates, I think that's good there. Apart from that, yeah. So that's from me. I think over to you, Tim.
Okay, Asif, thanks for having me. I'm grateful to be with you all virtually. This session is going to be about Azure Resource Manager deployment templates. Whether they'll be 10 or not, I'm not sure. We'll find out as we go along. Our overview for this hour. I want to make sure you know how to get the session materials that I've prepared so that you can practice on your own. As I said, I'm going to conduct a demo rather than who wants to do slides with you. Who wants to do that? IT is all about hands-on stuff. First, the session materials I've placed in one of my public GitHub repositories. You can follow this short link if you'd like. It's timw.info/armpp. And that gives you a whole bunch of that I'll be working with in my demo. Wait for it right now. All right, so first to set the stage, here we are in the Azure portal. Every single deployment you do in your infrastructure, it's going to be at the resource group level. Therefore, with the resource group being the fundamental deployment, every single one of those deployments is tracked. Get to it in the resource group scope by clicking the deployment setting. You can see in reverse chronological order every deployment that I've made into this group. This is useful for a number of reasons. You or one of your colleagues has made a deployment successful. You now want to use that definition for future deployments. How are you able to save yourself work and capitalize on this? Well, we get to the underlying definition, which you may already know in JavaScript object notation or JSON. We've got a representation of this deployment. And what's kind of interesting is that it's all the same, regardless of whether you've done the deployment through the Azure portal, or whether you scripted it out yourself in PowerShell or Azure CLI or a software development kit, or if you work with an Azure Resource Manager template. It's always going to be available, and it's always going to be available. We can grab or download. We can run a custom deployment. We can run a custom deployment based, or we can even add online library. Notice that this says Azure portal-based template library feature has been in preview for literally years. I've talked to some of the engineers, and they've got a lot of great ideas on all this, but it must be deprioritized at this point over at Microsoft. So anyway, as I said, whether Azure creates the JSON for you, or it comes for you, or it comes from you, given that JSON underlying data format used in all of our deployments, how can we leverage maximum accuracy, reliability, and success? I want to start my first proven practice of infrastructure as code. Here we are in Visual Studio Code. You can see in my Explorer, I've basically just cloned that I shared with you a moment ago. Notice here that I've got a source code folder. It's got a simple Node.js web application. Right alongside the application source code, notice that I have a YAML definition, a pipeline. So this reminds us that if you're working, you might not be a developer, you might not be a developer specialist, database specialist, or a database administrator. But in keeping with DevOps principles, we're all working from the same shared code base. We can automate and note that we can automate build. I mean, this is an Azure DevOps. I mean, this is an Azure DevOps single stage. Nowadays in Azure DevOps, we can actually do build and release processes kind of clunky in the same file. It's kind of clunky. GitHub Actions would be another. GitHub Actions would be another place. My coughing. I'm sorry about my coughing. I don't know what's going on. So there's the pipeline definition. So there's the pipeline definition. And then yes, the source code. And then yes, we've got our infrastructure. Here's again where we're coming. Here's again where we're JSON templates. All right. JSON templates. All right. So proverbial bird in your ear as we continue going on. You might wonder, where am I getting these proven practices? And what's to say that my proven practices that I recommend to you are better than what you and your team develop? Well, they may not team develop. Well, they may not. Advantage I have in my career. I've been in IT about 22 years now. About 22 years now. And I've worked in the industry a fair amount. My skills are in knowledge transfer. That's why I'm a teacher. Because I teach around the world, because I teach around the world, I'm able to hear from practitioners how they're using the stuff. And because my specialty is synthesizing knowledge, take all of that input, combine it with my own experience, and that's what I'm here to share with you. And that's what I'm here to share with you. So is this proven practice list definitive? Probably not. In fact, probably not. I absolutely welcome your questions in this hour. And if you have any of your own, really helped you, I'm all ears. I'm all ears, and I'm happy to add them to this developing list. Now, what about the question? Preferred or preferable development for these Azure resource templates. We might as well bring one up. We might as well bring one up. Something to look at. We can have something to bring up this demo.json. Well, I personally have a strong preference for Visual Studio Code. Well, number one, it's free. Well, number one, it's free. Number two, it's cross-platform. Windows and Mac myself. And number three, because of the development emphasis itself. This tool itself is updated. It's always available on any system I'm on, and any system I'm on, and it behaves pretty much exactly the same. I can, for instance, do a control to bring up my integrated console. Come up into terminal and spawn a new terminal I want to make sure to remind you. ARM template development environment set up as quickly as possible. Hopefully, you've got the latest version of PowerShell core on your system. Hopefully, you also have the Git client on your system, because if you're not working in source code control, I hope that you'll change that soon. I hope that you'll change that soon. As far as where to get those, and I don't mean to insult anybody's intelligence, by the way, because I respect that you may already know. I'm just trying to be as complete as possible in my instruction. If I'm going to grab a Git installer from the web, I'll go to git-scm. As far as PowerShell core goes, been in GitHub for quite a while. It is itself an open source project. PowerShell, and then over on the right-hand side, release for your operating system. So once you've got Git and PowerShell core installed, Visual Studio Code. And you also want to install the Azure modules, and I would say install the Azure command line interface to install the Azure PowerShell modules from the PowerShell gallery. Install something like install modules, and if you already have a previous version of the modules on your system, you can add the force switch parameter, because supports side-by-side module installation. You won't have any problems with. You can use a particular version by your code. Otherwise, your terminal should default to the latest version. I mentioned the Azure CLI, interface. That's eminently possible. Another environment that you'll want to install, in my opinion, is the Project Bicep. If you do a search for Project Bicep, you'll go to first link besides any sponsored. Find an Azure Bicep at GitHub. This is gaining a lot of really great momentum. I'm happy to see. I have to confess that I was at first wondering about its use, but now I'm convinced. Absolutely convinced. We'll go into this in much greater detail in the next 40 minutes or so. Essentially, Bicep is a domain-specific language or DSL. that rides on top of your ARM template JSON. Your ARM template JSON. Long story short, you'll want to install what's called the bicep command line interface. Again, you can just grab the latest build. You can just grab the latest build on Windows, Mac OS, or Windows, Mac OS, by having the interpreter on your system start doing, will allow you to compile and decompile So more on that is in bicep. So more on that. Back to the core development environment. Back to the core development environment. Assuming that anything else I might recommend to make your ARM as easy as possible in Visual Studio Code. Actually, yes, there's some Microsoft extensions. You want to make sure that you've installed. One would be their PowerShell. One would be their PowerShell enables language support for PowerShell and IntelliSense and IntelliSense and debugging and so on. Another, and this is particularly important, the most important extension for template extension. It's Microsoft Azure Resource Manager Tools extension, which gives you, as you would expect, for Azure template JSON. Forgive me, I know that it's JSON. Forgive me, I know that it's 8 p.m. or so, little after 7 a.m. So I'm not after fully my engines in my brain aren't fully spun up yet, but we're getting there. Let's see. Besides PowerShell and ARM tools, you might also want to grab the bicep. Want to grab the bicep that you've got language support. Make sure that you've got language support DSL for the bicep DSL. Anything else? The other ones are just extras or options. And if you have any options, and if you have any find helpful of your own, throw them into the chat, and I'll have a look at that when I'm initial presentation and I'm answering your questions. Okay, so what do we need to know about? Okay, so what do we need to know about in terms of template structure, in terms of proven practice? One thing that helps me is number one, knowing where to find the documentation and the reference. Putting in the time to understand the layout of these templates. One reason why I'm a big fan of Bicep now, their program manager, is that their program manager, Alex Frankel, made a comment to me offhand about just that. When we're using this JSON document in Azure, deploy infrastructure in Azure, code, if you look at the things in here that are reminiscent of a programming or skip, you've got looping, you've got function calls, and all of this. Function calls, and JSON was never intended. So when you look at it, it's like Microsoft the JSON schema a bit. The JSON schema to make it behave somewhat like a programming language, but it's not programming language. But it's not. So that really helped shape my understanding of Bicep is how important Bicep is to this process. Okay. Well, let me open up a new file. I'd like to throw in as many VS Code tips and tricks with VS Code, because if you do decide to use this as your base anything that saves time, it seems to me. And you should understand that Visual Studio Code operates on the basis of file type. So right now, specified in your settings, and on my system I have it set for plain text. Things rapidly change. If we change the file type, template 1.json, we're going to see that the language mode in the lower right now represents JSON. So at least VS Code is aware that this is a JavaScript and it will give us the highlighting or the code coloration and so forth. Doesn't yet know that this is a template. Watch this. If I type ARM, snippets show up. And a snippet is simply a code file that comes along with your various extensions. The Azure Resource Manager Tools extension includes a built-in code block. So this is going to save you a tremendous amount of typing. For example, the ARM exclamation mark just gives you a generic template. If you're doing a parameter file, I use this ARM-P, and that gives you an empty skeleton parameter file. And there's some other ones to choose from. You'll find that the extensions that have these trigger words and the ARM trigger words and the ARM tools start with ARM as you would expect. I'm going to press tab. I'm going to press tab, and now I get just an empty ARM template. Now some of these elements are required. You don't need any user-defined user-defined functions, so we won't need to do outputs here either necessarily. So I'll get rid of that. But now we can start working. We can see the schema declaration to make sure you're using the latest resource manager deployment schema. First of 2019. VS Code will give you is if you're using an older template, maybe copy and pasted template or whatever, Stack Overflow or whatever, pop up a notification asking you to update. Why do you want to use the latest schema? Why do you want to use the latest schema? To make sure that you can validate your deployment against products and features are not referenced in an earlier version of JSON. So that's template.json. So that's content version has to be a string. It has to be here as well. This is just for your own use. Again, this is just for your own use. Again, the hover effect. Notice the hover effect extension gives us to tools extension gives us. If we change that help on there, and if we change that something else, content version to something else, squiggly lines and find squiggly lines and another thing you can do if you have your terminal pane open down below problems, and this is going to give you a nice debugging. This is going to give you a nice debugging in terms of resolving validation errors with your template. Validation errors. I'm going to add those 4 elements back in, and then we see in my demo.json. And then we see in my demo.json I've got another error that we'll look at momentarily. What else about this? If we go into the resources array here, ARM trigger word again. Use that ARM trigger word again. With some help from the ARM tools extension. So you find so you have to do less copying and pasting. For me anyway, pasting in JSON is kind of a stressful experience. I tend to forget a comma here, or accidentally delete a square brace there. It's pretty annoying. But if you do ARM dash and then some product, I tend to use a storage account as a simple example. It gives you the resource definition, and these highlights through these elements. Tab through these elements in the snippet. Notice that in the snippet these little enumerations. Create these little enumerations. So eventually you can building these JSON templates by using the built-in snippets, and then the built-in snippets, and then the first time through you can work using the tab key to go through the different indexes. And once you've done that, you're done. And once you've done that, you're done. Completion goes away. But here we can take advantage of the Visual Studio Code by beginning to make our template more modular. There's specifically things like for the name of the storage account. For the name of the storage account, not only does the storage account name need to be globally unique, but it has all these restrictions. Lowercase characters, lowercase only, all this kind of validation. So what we might want to do is use this quick fix as a parameter. Pull this out as a parameter. STG. I'm going to call this STG because what I like to do with storage accounts, you have to construct a globally unique name. So prefix that you specify, deployment time, just as well could be a suffix. Just as well. And then we can use a template function. And then we can use a template function as a variable into the resources part of the template. Now notice that after I provided the parameter and the proven practice and the industry is with an initial lowercase with an initial lower, and then subsequent words, and then the subsequent words in the name uppercase for the first letter. Uppercase. Notice that we're prompted to add a description. This brings up your hygiene. This brings up your hygiene with regard to commenting your code. Call this storage prefix and press enter. So now we have some parameters. So now we have some parameters going on in our resources. Now notice that on line 16 we have this syntax. Expression fundamentally in JSON. Fundamentally in JSON, an object is going to be a set of curly braces. You've got a double quoted key. You've got a double quoted key, double quoted value, and double quoted value. Just a comma separated list of those. ARM template syntax, you can specify just a comma separated data array with square brackets. But if you put the square brackets and double quotes, that is a way to kind of hack to where Azure is expecting an expression. And this is going to give you all of the template function. And what this is doing is calling a built-in function called parameters, and then we're specifying the STG prefix parameter. Again, a nice thing about the ARM tools extension is that it's aware of all of these built-in functions. So you could just do the square brackets, and as you tooltip or the IntelliSense rather gives us parameters. And then I'll open the parentheses, and we even get an IntelliSense for all of your parameters. Scroll back and forth, tab again to get to them, and I hit tab again. Nice. And there it's completed. So now we've got our parameter up here. So now we've got our parameter up here, which you probably know has a data type, optionally and again you've got this opportunity for code comment. There's actually a few ways to inject code into your JSON that we'll get to in just a minute. Another neat thing about Visual Studio Code has an embedded code lens. And notice that at this point we don't have a separate parameter file for this deployment. So we can use this code lens feature to select or create a parameter. And we can just say we don't want to do it, create a new file, or if create a new file, or if you have one available, create a new one. I'm going to create a new one. I'll call this template 1 so I can associate it. I'll just do parameters. I'll just do param. Doesn't have to have a particular name. Let me press enter. Hello. Press enter. It's not really accepting my enter. What's going on here? Template 1 parameter. I don't think it liked parameter. I don't think it likes. I don't know what's happening here. Let me. One of the things about continuous delivery that's wonderful. Correct bugs and code errors. The downside of that, of course, sometimes even with all of the automations and practices that we've got in DevOps, you still can wind up into the wild. I'm not sure if that was a bug or I'm not sure if that was a bug or what. But at any rate, put one or more of our parameters file, which again makes our code even more module. The last thing I'll do on this template, to another demo file and go deeper, is the practice of using the parameters inputs to the template, and then handling them, and then as variables. Why is that in the resources? Why is that a good tip? Well, think about it this way: if you are doing infrastructure as code, and you have your template JSON in your that's being processed by your build and release pipelines. By your build and release the only part of that template that's exposed externally are the parameters. Your variables are going to represent values at deployment time, are visible only within the proven practice that I kind of like is to use parameters inputs to the deployment, but then handle them in variables. We've got a parameter called storage prefix here, and I'm going to change the prefix here, and I'm going to change this default value. I like to use my initials. I like to use my initials class. And then if I'm teaching a class, something like the name of the class. Something like the name of the class. Storage account prefix will be TWAZ104. And then as a variable, I can come up with a globally unique name for the storage STG account name. And I'm going to do the brackets to indicate that this is an expression. And a common pattern you see which allows you to combine two or more pieces of string data. It can get a little messy as an argument to prefix. And remember, we've got prefix. And remember, we've got so I can call the parameters function STG and put in that STG, and then I can do a comma. And then maybe I can add a literal STG as a suffix, something like that. And we get some that we haven't yet used the variable. That's true. The variable. Other patterns you'll see. In terms of helping you create names. Globally, there's a resource group function where you can grab ID, and there's a unique string function. Actually, that brings up a good point in terms of where to find these docs. In the course files that I've shared with you, the presentation files. If you look at the README Markdown file, that's the wrong one. No, that's the wrong one. Confuzzled here. A little root of the repo. Let me render that markdown. It's going to be over on the right here. This file kind of sums up the value I'm presenting. But the value of this file, as you can see here, I've given you detailed links to all of this stuff, including all of this stuff, including important template structure and syntax. Template structure and syntax. This ARM template invaluable. This is where you can look up. Let's say you're deploying and you want to know what the options are. Well, you want to go to the template reference document. Go to the template reference document. Look for whatever it is that you're interested in, and then you'll get the specific. And then you'll get the specific for that. We call JSON up a quick example here. And notice that because the project bicep is getting to be more and more by Microsoft and externally, you're going to see that this reflects in the Microsoft ARM template reference. It's showing you the JSON definition for a resource, and we also can see the bicep representation. And that's a very important proven practice have yet to discuss. Let me clean up my editor here. Let me clean up my editor carefully here. Closing out of tabs we don't need anymore. Get rid of that. Okay, so we've now handled that parameter in the variable definition for storage. And so to finish this out, resources whenever we need that value, for instance, here on line 18, when we're actually assigning the storage account a name, get rid of this parameters function. You know what I'm going to do. I'm going to call the built-in variable functions, and I'm going to pop in the STG account name variable. There it is. Here's another example of a built-in function call, and that's a proven practice for Microsoft. Don't hard code your locations. Don't hard code because your deployments are almost always be in the scope of the resource group. Set the location of your resources easily and dynamically by calling the resource grabbing function and then just grabbing the location property, and it would be the resource group that you're deploying against. All right, so I've got some files. I've got some files summarize some additional tips, demo.json and demo.json and demo.param. Let me revisit the subject of comments. In JavaScript, you can do a single line comment. You can do that also in JSON because it's part of JavaScript. Microsoft warns against every tool recognizes this. It may generate an error. Take that for what it's worth. So you can do single line comments. You can do single line comments anywhere in your ARM line 11, as you can see on line 11. And I'm not being flagged for validation error down in the problems pane either. So that appears to be fine. VS Code. Now your parameters, you can add your parameters. You can metadata block. This optional metadata description element has a description element. This is a good place where you can put limitations. Storage account, for example, the naming requirements. Having naming requirements. This is another opportunity for you to put in your own team policies and practices. See what are some other things you could do. For non-secret data, it's useful to do a default value right in the parameter declaration. Because you may not want to use a separate parameter file, and you want to do just a fully automated deployment. Now, we never want to put a secret. We never want to put a secret as a default value because we never ever want to expose sensitive data in plain text. I have a tip for that momentarily. Another thing you can do is create an allowed values array. For example, in this case with a storage account, you specify a replication option. Maybe in your own governance, you've decided that these are the only allowed replication values. So you can create just an array. And when you deploy, if the person or process deploying doesn't choose one of the allowed values, it would fail validation. So that's just one way to enforce a little bit of policy and governance in your with regard to secret values. With regard to secret values, passphrases, passwords, passphrases, connection strings, database connection strings. We want to number one make sure that we set the data type to secure string. And what that will do is Azure will ensure to never ensure to never display unencrypted value, in console output and that kind of stuff. Again, I'm not doing a default value for this. Instead, what I like to do is use a separate parameters file, as you can see here. We've got this reference keyword, such that we can our population of the secret go into one of our Azure key vaults. So this has a couple dependencies. So this has a couple dependencies. You'll have to have an Azure key vault. You'll have to have an Azure key vault. Secret in there. You'll have to have the secret in there. Number 3, under whose identity under whose deployment will have to have an access policy that enables them to get the key. Hopefully that makes sense, right? Hopefully that makes sense. Without ever specifying any password, Azure Resource Manager, again, based on whoever's credential it's running, resolve the name of my key vault, resolve the name of my key vault, grab my demo secret, and grab my demo secret, and still keep it as secret as it can. I mean, it's going to need Azure's going to need the unencrypted value itself, all of its output, but in all of its output, the unencrypted value. That makes some semblance of sense. Let me see some other opportunities. Comments. You can actually add comments. You can actually add a comments key value in the resources section of your template. So again, you might include to-do items for you and your team. This might just be simple education, teammates, help onboard new teammates. Take advantage of this capability to add this documentation into your ARM templates. You know, and I know that comments are something that pretty quickly in terms of if there are no comments, or if there's too many comments, or if there's too many comments, you know. So it's a balancing act. At least in my experience it is. All right. So what are we doing here for time? Yeah. Let's look at some other files. In my repo. Do you and your team prefer a single monolithic template that does a whole bunch of things? By contrast, do you want to break your templates into a more modular structure? So instead of having just one kitchen sink that does it all, maybe you have a parent template, and then you've got other modular templates, and then you can simply the child template from the parent template. Two main ways that you can accomplish that when you're using multiple ARM templates. One would be nested templates, and other would be linked templates. Given the two, I prefer the linked. Although both of them have let me explain. In this example, with a nested template, you've got a parent level template. As you can see here, what's it doing? Well, it's not doing much other than calling a child. You notice in the resources block on line 11, we're calling resource provider Microsoft Resources/deployments. And what you're doing with a nested template is literally pasting or pasting in, however you do it, a full ARM template inside the parent template. That kind of makes me a little anxious. Just thinking about it, the potential tedium involved in that. But yeah, it'll work. And you can specify in terms of parameters and variables, whether you're inner scope, whether you're referring to items within the inner or nested template, if you're working with parameters and variables that are declared in the parent template. These are just things you add here. To the property of the nested template, as you can see. A better approach, it seems to me, a cleaner approach would be to do a linked. So what we have here again in the resources section of your parent template, defining a resource of the type Microsoft/resources/deployments. Linked template. You're specifying a linked template. Important piece here is that you've got one or more template. Remember I said that this has its pain points as well. The main pain point with linked is that this needs to be, unless you have logic going on, this needs to be a public URI. So you see this if you've got a child template or another GitHub repo or another publicly accessible repo. And I do in business. And that's very likely not to be the case at all. What I've seen a couple ways being able to accomplish being able to fetch a private is that you can specify I don't know if I have an example. Well, I don't know if I have an example. There's a couple that. For instance, you might have your child template in the blob service of a storage account. In which case you can specify there's two parameters. One is called underscore artifacts location, and another is called artifacts location, SAS token. And the long story short is that you have to accommodate to the file in your blob service, which isn't your blob service, which you do have to have a SAS or shared access in order to successfully authenticate into the blob service. It's kind of painful and a little bit hacky right now, unfortunately. So what I want to do next is make sure to give justice to this project bicep and make a case for its use. I mentioned before that JSON is not a programming language. And number two, there's competing infrastructure as code. Are you familiar with HashiCorp Terraform, for instance? Terraform is an infrastructure as code platform that shares a lot of similarities with Azure Resource Manager deployment. A lot of my colleagues prefer Terraform because, for example, it supports a provider model. You can learn a single domain-specific language, HashiCorp control language, HCL, and you're seeing an example on your screen of that right now on your screen. And the value prop here is you and your teammates can use this HashiCorp language, and then just plug in the resource. You may be multi-cloud. You may need to define infrastructure and Google Cloud, Azure and AWS. So you've got a consistent syntax to do this deployment definition. Again, that's something that is shared with ARM. The fact that we're not doing imperative programming, where we're telling the runtime environment exactly how it should do what we want it to do. We're basically defining how we want our environment and hopefully Azure will make it so. Again, you probably have run into pain points like an Azure Resource Manager template deployment. You can do it depends on explicitly define. For example, if you're doing a virtual machine deployment, you are going to do a network interface. To make sure that the VM resource for your new network interface to associate with. But again, it's a little bit painful. HashiCorp has a pretty neat model actually, where they can actually do an execution plan and show you plans to do exactly how it plans to do its work. Dependency management and so on. So why do I say all this about Terraform? Because I think Microsoft was very heavily influenced when they created Terraform when they creating Project Bicep. I've got a script file, a PS1 file called install Bicep. This PowerShell code comes from MVP named Chris Peachman, but it's less necessary nowadays for two reasons. Install the Bicep. You can install the Bicep right from GitHub system pretty easily And number two, if you're using a recent version of Azure PowerShell and the Azure CLI, you can actually deploy native files in Azure PowerShell or Azure CLI will compile the Bicep for you. Let me show you what a Bicep file looks like. Bicep file. You'll want to make sure, in addition to having the Bicep, you want to make sure that your Bicep files have that extension. Bicep, the file type. And you'll know that you're ready to go. If you look in the lower right, and you see that the language mode is in fact set for Bicep. The Bicep extension includes all of the syntax highlighting and code complete and all of that stuff moment ago with ARM Templates. Now, when you first look at this code, it resembles aspects of JavaScript. We don't have a let. We don't have a let. But the idea here is that we can use this domain-specific language to define our template to define our template from a simple to complex, from a simple to complex, where instead of having to horse around with all of those JSON nested objects, we can use a much more standardized syntax, especially if you have experience with other
So our
scripting
parameter
languages.
definitions,
So
are
our
just as
parameter
easy as
definitions
giving them
are
a
just
using
as
the
easy as
param
giving them
keyword,
using the
giving the
parameter
parameter
a name,
giving the parameter
and then
a
doing
name,
an assignment, as you
and
can
then
see
doing
here,
an
a data
assignment,
type,
as
as
you
well.
can see here, a data type as well.
Variables, notice that they don't
Variables,
have to be kept
notice
in a
that they
different
don't have to
section
be
of the
kept in a
template. You
different
can just
section
call
of the
them right
template.
offhand.
You can
Again,
just
the
call
difference
them right
between
offhand. Again,
parameter
the
and
difference
variables
between
that the parameter and
parameters are
variables that you pass in at deployment
whereas the
time,
variables are
whereas the
calculated
variables are
only
calculated and used only internally inside the template.
And then instead of a resources
And then
block,
instead
we
of a
have this
resources block,
keyword.
we have this
You
resource
give your
keyword.
resource a friendly
You give
name.
your
That's not the
resource
name
a
of the
friendly
resource.
name.
That's
That's not
just
the name of the
basically a name
resource.
label.
That's just basically a
Then
name
there's
label.
the
Then there's
resource
the
definition,
resource
provider, and
the
API
resource
version.
provider and API
And then
version.
we've got this
And then
simplified
we've got
syntax.
this
And the reason I
simplified
think why
syntax.
this
And the reason I
syntax
think
isn't
why
lighting up
this
different
syntax
colors
isn't
is this is
lighting up
actually a
different
pretty
colors
old
is this is
example
actually a pretty
of
old
bicep
example
code.
of bicep code. I need to update this a bit. Microsoft has made it even easier.
Microsoft has made it even
call your
easier
parameters and
to
variables.
call
You
your
can just
parameters
literally
and
do the
variables.
name.
You can
So
just
I could
literally
just
do the name.
So I could just
space,
do name colon space
storage account name. We don't need
storage
this
dollar
account name.
sign
We don't
curly
need this
braces
dollar
unless you're
sign
going to do
curly
an
braces,
expression.
unless you're going to do an
That would be a case
expression.
where you
I
would
guess
use it.
that would be a case where
So
you
the
would
idea
use it.
is that you can
So the
use
idea
this
is that
easier
you
to
can
use language
use
and
this easier
syntax
to
to
use
develop
language
your
and
deployment.
syntax to develop
And
your
notice that the
deployment.
output block.
And notice that
Again,
the
instead of
output
having a
block,
fairly
again, instead of
complicated
having a fairly
JSON fragment,
complicated JSON
you can just
fragment,
do your output.
you can just
and then
do
what
your
you want to
output,
echo back
and then
from
what
your
you
output,
want
and
to
you're
echo
good to
back
go.
from your output, and
Now,
you're
it
good
used
to go.
to be not too long
Now,
ago.
it used to be
that
not
there was
too
an
long
initial
ago
step.
that
If
there
we
was
wanted
an
to
initial
deploy
step.
this
If we
storage
wanted
account
to
to our
deploy
Azure
this storage
subscription,
account to our
we would
Azure
have to
subscription,
compile it. So, for
we would have to
example, let me
compile
bring
it.
up
So,
a
for
terminal.
example, let me bring up a terminal.
See, am I in the correct folder?
See, am
Now
I in the
I'm gonna need to
correct
go
folder?
into
Now I'm going to need to go
infrastructure.
into infrastructure
and make sure I can see that file.
and make sure I can see that
Yep,
file.
there it is. When you have the
there it is.
bicep CLI
When you have the
installed,
bicep
you can call
CLI
it with
installed,
simply
you can
bicep.
call it with
And just
simply
like you
bicep.
have in Terraform,
And just
that
like you have in
syntax,
Terraform,
that
syntax,
apply or
Terraform,
apply
whatever
or
they are.
Terraform,
In
whatever
bicep,
they
you
are.
can do a
In
compilation
bicep,
by
you
doing
can do a
bicep
compilation
build,
by doing
and then
bicep
the name
build,
of the
and then the name
bicep
of the
file.
What does
Bicep
that
file.
process do?
What does that
Well, as I
process
said,
do?
bicep is an
Well, as I said,
abstraction
bicep
over
is an
the ARM
abstraction
template
over
syntax.
the ARM
So
template
by doing a
syntax.
bicep build,
So by doing a bicep
bicep
build,
actually creates
bicep
a
actually
JSON
creates
file. So I
a
should have,
JSON
if I
file.
refresh
So I
my
should have, if I
ARM
refresh
PP,
my
I
ARM
should
PP,
have a storage account
storage
right
account
there that
JSON
matches
right there.
everything
That
that's in my
matches
bicep
everything
file. Isn't
that's
that
in
neat?
my bicep file. Isn't that
But
neat?
as I said, nowadays,
But as
we
I
can
said,
deploy
nowadays,
the bicep file directly.
bicep
So, for
file
example, I
directly.
could do
So, for example, I
let
could
me
do
clear the
a
screen. I could do a
let me
new
clear the screen.
AZ
I could do a
resource
new
group
AZ
deployment.
resource group
Give it a
deployment.
name called bicep.
Give it a name called
bicep. BICEP deploy.
BICEP deploy.
And the template file.
And the template file
is
storage
count
storage
bicep. Isn't that neat? So the catch here is that you want to make sure you have the most recent version of Azure PowerShell. Or if you're going to do it with Azure CLI, you want to make sure that you have the latest version there. So you don't even have to worry about that.
So you don't even have to
compilation
worry
step.
about
You
that.
can keep your bicep source
You can
code
keep your
in that
bicep
format,
source
which I
code
think is
in
pretty
that
neat.
format, which I
So
think
I'll
is
hit
pretty neat.
enter.
So I'll hit
submit
enter,
the deployment,
and it'll
looks
submit
like
the
it's asking
deployment,
where do I
and it
want to
looks like
deploy
it's
it. I
asking
should
where
have
do I want to
handled
deploy
this.
it. I should have handled this,
handled
but
that
you
in any
could
number
have
of ways.
handled
But
that in any number
if
of
Azure
ways.
Resource Manager, as
If
you
Azure
see, has
Resource
any
Manager,
deployment
as you see,
questions,
has
that is
any
to say,
deployment
any
questions, that
values
is to
that
say
need
any
a value
values
that I haven't
that need a
provided,
value that
you're
I haven't
prompted right in the
provided,
terminal
you're
to do so.
prompted right in the
Now I
terminal to
learned
do
of
so.
some new
Now I learned of
bicep
some
resources.
new bicep
resources
just a few
I
hours
learned
ago,
of them
actually,
just a
before I
few
went
hours
to bed
ago,
last
actually,
night.
so
Before
I
I
didn't
went to
have
bed
time
last
to
night,
add
so
them
I
to the
didn't have time to add
Markdown.
them
So
to
let
the
me give them to you
Markdown. So
verbally.
let me
If
give
you're
them to you
interested in
verbally.
going further
If
with
you're
this
interested in
bicep
going
stuff,
further with this
one
bicep
is
stuff,
called the
one is called the
Project Bicep Playground. Let me see. Oh, come on. By Azure Bicep Playground. Darn, sorry about this. It's got the playground is on a really
domain.
weird.
It's not easy to remember.
Domain. It's not easy.
But as you
to
can see,
remember.
the docs.
But as you can see,
the docs even right at GitHub.
So again, where I am is under Azure Bicep,
and in the README file,
if you scroll down the list under Get Started with Bicep,
there's a really nice multi-step
tutorial that I definitely suggest you look at.
The author did a great job
simple and then
adding more and more
features and capabilities to their
but
deployment.
Right here, there's a Bicep.
But right here, there's a Bicep.
Open that in another tab.
Open that in another tab. What the Bicep Playground shows is a side-by-side view.
Is a side-by-side
template code on one
ARM
side.
template code on
And,
one side.
Bicep
and
code on the other.
Bicep code.
So in this example on the right,
in this example
ARM
on the
template,
right,
and it's doing a VM
template, and it's doing a VM
username and
admin
username and
then on the
password.
left we can see.
And then on the left we can
decompiled
see what
Bicep code
decompiled Bicep code.
So let me see if I can zoom in.
No, let me see if I can zoom in. Unfortunately,
not letting me zoom
but
in.
This is a great way.
But this is a great way
if you already have
experience
working with ARM
template
code,
working with ARM
to
template
immediately
code,
start to transfer
to
your
immediately
knowledge and
start
see
to
what
transfer
they're doing.
your knowledge and see
You
what
notice
they're doing.
that for your parameters,
You notice
here,
that for your
you can add
parameters
these little
here,
decorator
you can
classes,
add these little
that
decorator
just,
classes
that
do
can
things
just,
like
modifying
do things like
properties and that
modifying
kind of stuff. Let me see if I can get another good example.
Let me see if I can
Watch
get
this.
another good
You
example.
go on the
Watch
upper
this.
right, you can
You go on the
actually
upper
tap
right,
into
you can
the Azure
actually
Quick
tap
Start
into
Templates
the
gallery
Azure Quick Start Templates
and
gallery
look up one of their
They don't have them all in there, but
they don't have them all in there.
Let me do storage blob container.
Let me do storage blob container.
Nuts. I was looking for some examples.
I was looking for some examples
of where they
notation
use
to
that
specify
notation
parameter
to
properties. You know how in
parameter
ARM
properties.
templates,
You know how
if
in
you've got a
ARM
numeric,
templates, if you've got
parameter
defined,
parameter defined,
min and
you
max
can add the
values.
min
storage
and
account
max
would
values.
actually be a good
Storage
example
account would actually
to
be a
where
good
you
example.
could specify
to
under
where you
storage
could specify
account name.
under
I don't know
storage
if
account
live.
name.
I don't know if is this live. I think this is live.
No, I was trying to put a new line in there.
I was trying to put
You've
a
got
new
the
line
min
in there.
value and the
You've
max
got the min value
Well, the
and
way
the max
those turn
value.
into Bicep
Well, the way
is
those
using
turn
that
into Bicep
is
is
using
using
that
that
So you do something like above the parameter for storage account name,
min value
equals 3,
min value
max value
equals
24.
max value equals
That's kinda
24.
neat.
So
Now notice that
kinda
there's
neat.
all this.
Now notice that there's all this.
business.
You
can
compile
actually
business.
convert
You
your
can actually
existing ARM
convert
templates
your
to
existing
Bicep
ARM templates to
by hitting
Bicep.
this decompile button.
By hitting
so
this
let's browse
decompile
into
button.
my
So
ARM
let's
PP
browse
folder,
into my ARM PP
into my
folder,
infrastructure subfolder,
into my infrastructure
and let me grab
subfolder,
that storage,
and let me grab that
demo.json
storage
file,
demo.json file
so
that I was
in
working.
a flash,
So in a
I've
flash,
loaded in that template over
I've
on
loaded
the right,
in that template
and then
over
on
the
the
right,
left it shows
and then
you
on
the
over on the left it
Bicep.
shows you the
So that's what's
the
called
Bicep.
a decompile
So that's what's called a
JSON to
decompile
Bicep
operation.
is
JSON to
decompile.
Bicep
Bicep
to
is
JSON is
decompile.
Bicep
Compile.
to JSON is compile.
Formal term for the whole process.
Formal
is
term for the whole
transpilation.
process is
Okay,
transpilation.
this is what I was talking about.
Okay,
Look
this
on
is
line
what I
18.
was talking
How
about.
we've
Look
got
on
this
line
allowed
18.
values
How we've
array
got
for
this
your
allowed
storage account
values array for your
replication.
storage account
The way that we
replication.
represent that in
The way that we'd
Bicep
represent
is
that
at
in
allowed,
Bicep is
and
at
then
allowed.
we've got this list.
And then
There's
we've
some
got this list.
issues with
There's
Bicep.
some
because remember,
issues with
Bicep is not
because
in
remember,
release
Bicep
status.
is
It's
not
in public
in release
preview.
status. It's in public
And one thing
preview.
it's not supporting
And
right
one
now
thing
are
it's not supporting right
comma-separated
now
arrays.
are
So notice that this
comma-separated
allowed
arrays. So
array,
notice that this
it does
allowed
use
array,
the square
it
bracket
does use the
syntax,
square bracket
but we've got
syntax,
a new line
but
separating
we've got a
those
new line
objects instead of
separating those objects
comments.
instead of comments.
And down on line 19,
And down on line
19, remember how in our template we constructed the storage account by concatenating the storage account name prefix.
Storage account name prefix.
No, in the resources section.
No, in the resources
line
section.
39.
Line
where we were doing a
39,
concat operation.
where we were doing a
to take
concat
your
prefix
operation
and then
to take
add
your
some
prefix
fixed
and then
string to
add
it.
some fixed
Well, you
string
can do
to it.
concatenation.
Well, you can do
simpler
concatenation
in simpler
Bicep
in
over here on line 19.
Bicep
It's
over
using
here on
that
line 19.
dollar
It's using
curly
that
brace to
dollar
reference
curly
the
brace
parameter.
to reference
And then
the
we just
parameter.
run it right into
and then
a
we
string
just
literal.
run it right into
I don't
a
really
string
like
literal.
that myself.
I don't
It's a
really
little
like that
non-intuitive.
myself. It's a little
But at any
non-intuitive.
rate, there you have it.
But at any
How are you
rate,
feeling
there
so
you have
far?
it.
How are you feeling so far? I want to make sure to give due justice to test-driven development. Test-driven development. Are you familiar with the Pester project? Are you familiar with the Pester project? This is a unit testing framework. This is a unit testing framework projects for PowerShell. And you may very well be using PowerShell alongside your Azure Resource Manager template deployment. So you should be aware of a project browser again. Let me bring up my browser again. ARM-TTK. ARM-TTK. And this is the Azure Resource Manager template. You can find the project at GitHub under Azure by going under Azure ARM TTK. And this project is based on Pester tests, and it runs a whole bunch of unit tests against your ARM template. Guess what? Your ARM template. And you can have it run all the tests. You can have it run all the tests for specific ones. You can have specific ones. You can have it do that. But this is kind of like the PowerShell's analyzer best practice. In other words, you run it against your template. In other words, you run it against your template. Flag you on any tests. And it'll flag you on any tests that don't meet Azure or Microsoft's own community-proven practices with template. So for convenience, I put the ARM TTK repo in the course files that I shared with you already. Let me bring up my work file to show you how it works. One way with the template to get started with the template testing is to just install the module. There's a number of ways to do it. There's actually a couple shell scripts in there where you can just run the shell script, for instance, if you're on Windows, for instance, and then provide a path to the template that you're inspecting. But if you want to do it in a more formal way, here on line 5, you see here on line 5, you can do an import module file to import the module file. Now, let me try that right now. Selection, click, run selection. By installing the ARM TTK module, you then can use their test AZ template function. The way that you run all of the test AZ template, and then for template path, you path out to the one that you're looking at. Let me see. Do I have any JSON in this file? I have a file called T-shirt. Why don't we look at that one? T-shirt. And let me see. Let me just grab this. Let me just grab this. Right click. Run selection. Okay, I'm not sure why that bombed out. How about we try another JSON account? How about storage account? The deployment template is the name of the main Azure Resource Manager template. And the code that I have here creates variables to make it easier to failures and the test failures and the test. I'm just going to run the command. And it comes back in Pester syntax. Tests come back with I'm colorblind, but I think this is supposed to be green. And any tests that fail come back and they give you why that test failed. And if you take a look at these, these are good practices. The handfuls that we're covering in this hour. Making sure that it's fully defined. And you can go into the docs. And you can go into the docs on the nice explains what every single one of these units does and why it exists. If you do a search for Azure Resource Manager, template toolkit, test toolkit, and then add docs to the end of your search string, the ARM template test to the ARM template test toolkit. This walks you through the whole thing step by step. Pretty neat. And I also discovered in my research last night, I'm having trouble speaking. Forgive me. I found last night in my research some community members have made some Azure DevOps that allow you to integrate this testing in your build and release process. So the idea is in your CI/CD pipelines, you've got your infrastructure as code, or maybe you've got bicep in there, and you're including an explicit compilation step. Remember, that's not necessary. As long as you're using a recent version of the Azure CLI or Azure PowerShell. But once you've got your JSON, you can then pass it into your test toolkit. If any of the tests fail. If any of the tests fail, that's a good thing to keep in mind. See, if I can't see the chat panel with my screen shared for some reason, so I'm not sure if we have any questions. Are there any?
Yeah,
Are there any
questions here?
Yeah, we have
One
few
is
questions here.
actually someone saw the Terraform also on your
So
they're
they're asking,
code.
is there,
So
are you
they're
going to,
asking, is there are you going
highlight
to
something on Terraform
highlight something
also
on
with the ARM
Terraform also
templates,
with the
how exactly
ARM
it works?
templates? So how exactly it works?
And
well, I'm not sure what the speaker is asking for specifically. I mean, again, because VS Code operates on the basis of file type. If you have a .tf file, VS Code is ready to give you help with Terraform, but you'll want to also make sure to install the official extension, because HashiCorp does in fact make an extension to support that language. Now, I don't have experience in terms of conversion from Terraform to ARM, that's actually a great question that I will track down today or tonight. So let me make a note of that. Terraform to ARM. Okay, I will. And I know that I have some colleagues who prefer YAML, the yet another markup language format, and there are projects that allow you to do your ARM template definition in YAML and run a conversion process there. I don't think that's officially supported by Microsoft, but that is another conversion possibility. Because let's face it, working with in the ARM templates can get pretty tedious.
And there is one more question here. Resource to be deployed is under resource group and may contain several resources. Does it mean that we include all the resources? We should include all the resources in such resource group, or just flexible resource in resource group.
Short answer that I would have is that it's going to depend on your team and your practices. In terms of how Azure Resource Manager works itself, recall that although your resource groups do have to have a region for governance, that's mainly just the resource group after all is just a container. And whereas my TIM resource group is located in the East US, I may very well have resources that are in other locations. There's not a location I wanted to, but I could if I wanted to. There's not a hard dependency in that. We've been dealing with in the past hour doing so everything you have in your ARM template will go single resource group. And there's one more point I want to make about that. Let me bring back my terminal. Is that when you're doing that new deployment command, if you're going to do this with the Azure PowerShell or the Azure CLI, there's an important parameter called Azure Resource Manager works in incremental mode by default. And this is the safer way because you might already have stuff in your resource adding to it, and you're just adding. You've got an existing resource group and you want to do a modify, incremental make sure process works. That process works. By contrast, mode complete. You want to be careful with that. And what a complete mode will do is say whatever is in your template, resource group will be populated. But if there's anything else in there, Azure will delete it. The complete mode does have a use case, but be careful.
And there's one more question. It's by Matthew. I prefer to stay with Terraform. Is there any extra bicep offers for IAC?
Well, from Microsoft, bicep appears to be there is in terms of analogs between ARM and Terraform. There's a newer switch added to this new AZ resource group deployment. Now, the PowerShell's had what if for a long time. But this what if resource group deployment functions a lot like the Terraform execution plan option, where it gives you a pretty detailed report about what it's going to deploy. deploy and about what it's going to deploy and that kind of stuff. Other than that, I'm not sure how well I'm answering your question. I would just say from Microsoft, the road is bicep. Also, there's also what HashiCorp continues to do. I found in practice sometimes there's a delay. New products in Azure before they're defined in the Terraform ecosystem. Other than that, I'm not aware of anything. Hit me up on Twitter if you find anything out. I'm happy to promote. So I think that's about it. Let me bring up my contact information slide. Let me jump ahead a couple. Yeah, so here again, the materials are at info.armpp, and my Twitter handle is TechTrainer. You don't have to follow my account. You don't have to follow my direct message. Send me a direct message. I really appreciate you having me. Any final questions? Any final questions?
I have one question. I'm not sure. Is it? I think I'm not sure. Is it? Is there any? From Microsoft, is there any roadmap to support either for Bicep or either for Bicep?
I see. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Yeah, they haven't been. Yeah, the engineering team is pretty tight-lipped because it's not public knowledge. It's not public knowledge. But just an informal chat. Very, very. They are very, very and the multi-cloud. So I would say informally. Don't informally. But informally, yes. We can expect multi-cloud eventually. That's my prediction. That's my prediction. You can kind of see that. You can kind of see that in the Azure name. It's not called Azure Bicep. Teams being very careful to call it Project Bicep or Bicep. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you've got interoperability with Terraform and with other clouds going forward.
Nice. Hi everyone. If you have any questions, either you can unmute yourself, or maybe you can put things in chat box. If you have questions later, maybe you can reach out to either one of us, or maybe you can also follow the Tim on Twitter. He's quite active on Twitter, so you can put your questions there. Okay, I think so. Okay, thanks a lot, Tim. It's a really nice session, and we have learned a lot. And maybe, hopefully, after COVID, we can see you in Singapore. Physically.
I would absolutely love to visit a garden. What do you call a garden in a city or something like that?
Yeah, just Bay of Garden.
Thanks for having me. Take good care, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining the session today. This session recordings will be available on our YouTube channel. So if you have anything, you can can recheck again. Full section.